I turned 30 on a Tuesday. It was raining, light but steady, the kind of weather that makes everything feel like it's happening behind glass. I worked a half day, picked up a small vanilla cake from a corner bakery, bought myself tulips, went home alone. No calls, no messages, no knock on the door, not from my brother, not from my mother, and especially not from my father. My name is Leah Wells. I'm the middle child, but only when it's convenient. Older brother, Nathan Wells. Younger sister, Emily Wells. Nathan is the heir. Emily is the baby. I'm the space between their spotlight and their excuses. Growing up, Nathan was everything my father wanted. Tall, loud, fast. He broke things and people clapped. He lied and people laughed. They called it charm. He got C's in school and still got a car on his 16th birthday. I got straight A's and a speech about how gratitude means not asking for more. Emily came later. She was soft, fragile by design. My mother wrapped herself around that child like ivy. They shared clothes, secrets, and blame. When Emily missed deadlines, Mom blamed the teachers. When I missed dinner, she blamed my attitude. At some point, I stopped trying to be understood. I learned to be quiet, useful, forgettable, and like most people they take for granted, I became the one they trusted most when no one was looking. So when my 30th birthday passed without a single call, I wasn't surprised. I cut the cake anyway, poured myself a glass of wine, ate in silence. The next morning, I went back to work, answered emails, balanced grant data for the local housing office, smiled in all the right places. I didn't post about the birthday, didn't remind anyone, didn't mention the photos I saw last week, Nathan's birthday dinner, Mom behind him holding a tray of ribs like she was presenting a crown, Dad wearing his best flannel, Emily in gold earrings, captioned, "Big bro turns 34, so proud, 4 days." That was the difference between his birthday and mine. 4 days, and I was invisible again. The letter came 2 weeks later, thin envelope, bank logo, window front. I opened it without thinking, and then I sat down. Final notice, business loan default, $72,486.34, past due primary, Leah Wells. I've never taken out a business loan. I don't own a business. I called the number at the bottom, gave my name, my birthday, my social. The woman on the other end said, "Yes, ma'am, that's you." I asked her to explain. She told me I was listed as the primary on a loan application from 8 years ago, signed when I was 22. She confirmed the address, the employer listed, the email, all mine. I asked who the cosigner was. She read the name, Royce Wells, my father. I hung up, sat at the kitchen table, didn't speak, didn't blink, just let the static buzz behind my eyes. At 22, I was still living at home, right after college. I had no debt, clean score, no missed payments. I remember my father asking me to sign something for the insurance. He said it would help him get approved for a lease, or maybe it was a loan. He wasn't clear. He gave me a single page, told me not to worry. I didn't read it. I didn't know I was signing for Nathan. The loan went to his trucking company, one of his projects. I remember that name, Wells Freight Company. They bought 2 used semis. No plan, no contracts, no accountant. It folded in under a year. They never told me it was in my name, never said I'd be responsible. They just moved on, like they always did. The woman from the bank emailed me the full packet. My signature was there. Scanned. Shaky. The curve of the L wasn't mine. They'd traced it from an old lease. Probably one of the forms I filled out when I co-signed Emily's first car. I clicked download, saved the file, created a new folder on my desktop, named it. They used me. I didn't call them. Not yet. I didn't scream, didn't send texts. I just sat with the quiet. Because I knew what would happen if I confronted them. Mom would say, "We didn't want to worry you." Nathan would say, "It was a rough time, you know?" Dad would say, "You've always been the responsible one." Like that was permission. They forgot my birthday. But they remembered my credit score. They remembered I was easy to reach, easy to use, and easy to ignore. That night, I opened the fridge, cut another slice of cake, sat at the table with the bank file open beside me, took a bite, then whispered to no one, "Happy birthday to me." The bank was a glass box downtown, neutral lighting, beige carpet, a wall of smiling stock photos near the entrance, families holding house keys, couples shaking hands over contracts. I sat across from a woman named Meredith. She wore a navy blazer and a gold nameplate. She asked how my day was going. I told her I was here to file a fraud claim. Her tone shifted slightly, still polite, still practiced, but cooler now. She asked me for ID. I handed it over. She tapped at her keyboard, eyes flicking between screens. "All right. Leah Wells, 30 years old, primary borrower on a 2016 commercial loan in the amount of $72,486, co-signed by—" She paused. "Royce Wells." I nodded. "That's my father." Her eyebrows lifted. Not enough to look rude, just enough to say, "Oh." She printed the loan application and slid it across the table. My name was there, my signature too, almost perfect, but not mine. I knew the angle of that W, I knew it the way you know the shape of your own face in a mirror. My real signature slants forward. Slight pressure on the second loop. This one slouched. It was a copy of me, just like the version of me my family kept using. Beneath my name, Nathaniel Wells, applicant, owner of Wells Freight Company listed assets, 2 trucks, a fleet expansion plan, and a spreadsheet filled with made-up contracts. The only thing that was real was my credit. "Would you like to open a formal dispute?" Meredith asked. I nodded. She slid over a form. I signed it with the real version of my name. Then she handed me a pamphlet about credit damage recovery, smiled and said, "This kind of thing happens more than people think." I didn't answer, because that wasn't true. It doesn't happen. People do this. Family does this. People who call you trustworthy, but treat you like collateral. Nathan has always had a fallback. When he flunked out of college, Dad blamed the professors. When he quit 2 jobs in 1 year, Mom said, "He just hasn't found his passion yet." Every time he failed, someone patted the floor, and every time I succeeded, someone reminded me not to rub it in. I remember the year he got evicted from his first apartment. Mom called me in the middle of a staff meeting, whispered like someone had died. "Can he stay with you for a bit?" she asked. "Just a few weeks until he gets back on his feet." I had a 1-bedroom, no parking. I said yes anyway. He stayed 5 months, ate everything, left dishes everywhere, called it just vibing. When he finally left, he took my Bluetooth speaker. When I brought it up, he laughed and said, "You work in government. You can buy 10 more. They never taught him consequences. They taught him comfort. They taught me the opposite. Dad said I was built for the long haul, that I was the steady one. He said it like praise. But I heard what was missing. Steady meant dependable. Dependable meant invisible. I took the loan documents home, scanned them, uploaded them to a new folder. Evidence, Wells subfolders, forged signature, application timeline, financial impact. I ran a credit report that night. The numbers dropped 37 points since the last time I checked. My APR was climbing. The apartment I'd applied for last month, rejected due to unstable financial indicators. The words felt almost laughable, because the only unstable part of my life had always been them. I called a lawyer the next day. Not a loud one, not the kind that shows up on bus stops. This one specialized in fraud recovery and silent filings. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said, "This isn't unusual. But most people don't come prepared." I told her I was used to not being surprised. She smiled, then got to work. I didn't call my parents, didn't message Nathan. Letting them explain would have just added noise. And they'd twist it anyway. Dad would say, "I was trying to help your brother." Nathan would say, "It was just a signature." Emily would say, "Don't blow this up. You know how sensitive Dad gets." And Mom? She'd say the words I hate most. "Let's just talk like a family." As if a family is a place where betrayal sounds softer around a dinner table. But I wasn't sitting at that table anymore. I was drawing a new one built from silence, one that held up in court. That weekend I went to a bookstore, bought a calendar, black cover, no quotes, no prompts. I wrote one thing on the last page. Barbecue, July 14th, my birthday, and this year, they wouldn't forget it. I didn't show up at their door, didn't demand answers, didn't yell. That would have given them something. A scene to point at, a reaction to twist, a reason to say, "See? She's always dramatic." Number I gave them nothing, and quietly, I took everything. I met with my lawyer every other Thursday. Her name is Dana, mid-40s, sharp voice, slow smile. Her office smelled like toner and glass cleaner. She didn't offer pity, just structure. We started with paperwork. She asked questions. I gave facts, loan documents, email records. The exact week Nathan's trucking business incorporated, and the month it quietly dissolved. I printed articles from that time, a brief Facebook post where he bragged about buying 2 trucks, then nothing. Silence, like always, until someone else paid the bill. Dana said something during our third meeting. "This isn't just fraud, it's familial exploitation." I nodded. She asked if I was prepared to press charges against a relative. I said, "That depends." "On what?" I looked her in the eye. "On whether they keep pretending I don't exist." I started building a timeline. Every point of failure, every lie. When Nathan opened the business, when Dad submitted the forged paperwork, when the first default notice was mailed to my parents' house, not mine. I found the address Nathan used on the application. It wasn't even real. A strip mall with no mailbox. I requested transaction logs, learned the funds had been wired to a joint business account. Wells Freight Company Nathan listed himself as CEO. Royce Wells, my father, as logistics advisor. I was listed nowhere, not until the debt came due. I found an old message Nathan sent me when I was 22. "You've always been the smart one. Wish I had your brain for business." I saved it. Put it in a folder called Leverage. The deeper I looked, the cleaner their guilt became. They weren't sloppy. They were practiced. They assumed I'd stay quiet. Meanwhile, the consequences were building around me. My credit dropped again. I got a notice from my bank. APR increase. My car insurance adjusted their risk bracket. The landlord at the apartment I wanted already rented the unit, offered me one with worse lighting, higher rent. I said no. Moved into a smaller place instead, clean walls, no sunlight, but enough space for files. I didn't tell my friends. No one wants to hear you say, "My own family scammed me." It makes people uncomfortable. They look for reasons to soften it. Well, maybe they didn't mean to. They probably just needed help. I didn't need that. I needed receipts. And I had them. Mom texted me in late May. "Hey, sweetie, family barbecue's happening on the 14th this year. You coming?" I stared at the message for a long time. The emoji made my jaw clench. She hadn't mentioned my birthday, just the barbecue. Held on my birthday? Again. As if the coincidence made up for the forgetting, as if burnt ribs and folding chairs counted as affection. I replied one word. Sure. She sent a thumbs up. The next morning, I added an entry to my calendar. July 14th, service of process. Dana filed the fraud charges the week after. Mail fraud, identity theft, financial damage, summons issued, verified delivery date confirmed. The court officer, scheduled for early afternoon, they'd be in the middle of grilling. Everyone would be there. It would be impossible to pretend they hadn't seen it. Impossible to pretend I hadn't seen them. Still, I kept building. Printed everything on high-quality stock, labeled every folder, numbered every tab. If they ever denied it, I'd hand them their own fingerprints. Nathan posted a selfie that week, captioned, "Summer hustle." You already know. No job, no business, no plan, just him on a lawn chair, holding a beer, smiling like he never stole a thing in his life. That was always the trick. He made theft look like charisma, failure like ambition, and I was always the jealous one, the cold one, the outsider. That was the role I'd been assigned, the one they thought I'd never leave. They forgot one thing. I'm good with paper, better with patterns, and I've never needed noise to be dangerous. The barbecue was held in my parents' backyard, same as always. Plastic tablecloths, mismatched chairs, bottled sodas in a cooler half filled with ice, Nathan playing music off his phone like he was still 20, like everyone wanted to hear his playlist again. I got there early, brought chips, store brand, unopened. My mother kissed my cheek and said, "Leah." I didn't think you'd make it. I didn't answer, just handed her the bag and walked inside. The house looked the same, photos of Nathan on every wall, promenade baseball, his first apartment, even one of him with the company trucks, right before Wells Freight collapsed. No photos of me, no photos of Emily either, but hers weren't missing. They were just tucked away, in a box somewhere, meant to be pulled out when needed. Mine had been erased, like I had never stood in that hallway, never smiled through the same childhood, never been worth remembering. In the kitchen, I poured myself lemonade and sat by the window, watched my father fire up the grill. He didn't see me at first. Then he looked over, lifted his hand like a half-wave, and turned away. He hadn't spoken to me in almost a year. Last time, it was a 4-word sentence. "You're overreacting. Calm down." That was before I found the loan, before I saw my name next to a signature he didn't ask permission to use. Nathan was in rare form, wore sunglasses, held court like a cheap king, telling stories about networking, about taking time between ventures, about big moves on the horizon. No one asked for details. They just nodded. They always nodded. Because Nathan didn't need truth. He needed audience. And my family always gave him one. Emily arrived with her girlfriend around noon. She hugged me. Only person who did. Whispered, "You look good." Then glanced toward Nathan. "I'm guessing he doesn't know?" I shook my head. "No one knows." She looked uncomfortable. She always did in these settings. Still clinging to the illusion of peace, still hoping one of us would blink first and make things better. I didn't blink, and I wasn't here for peace. At 1:38 p.m., I stepped into the house to check the time on the oven clock. The officer was scheduled for 2 o'clock. I sipped water, straightened the edge of my shirt, walked back outside and sat near the folding table. Someone passed me a plate. Hot dog, potato salad. I took it. Didn't eat. Just waited. 1:59. Nathan was laughing with his mouth open, grease on his fingers, holding a beer like it had been earned. My father stood beside him, grill tongs in one hand, apron stained, face flushed. Emily was handing out lemonade. My mother was slicing pie. The sky was cloudless. Then, a car pulled up along the curb. Black sedan. No music, no noise. The door opened. A man in a collared shirt stepped out holding a thin envelope. He walked through the gate, paused, read from a clipboard. Royce Wells? My father turned, didn't understand. Yes? You've been served. Envelope out. Then, Nathan Wells? Nathan laughed like it was a prank. Yeah? You've been served. Another envelope. Then silence. Real silence. The kind that hisses under the skin. The kind that says, "This isn't a mistake." My father opened his. Read the first sentence. Stopped. His mouth didn't move. My mother's hands gripped the pie server. Emily stood still. Nathan flipped the pages like a script he hadn't auditioned for. His voice cracked when he said, "Leah?" I didn't look at him. I picked up my fork, took a bite of the potato salad, chewed, swallowed, then said quietly, "Happy birthday to me." The officer nodded once and left, just walked back through the gate and into his car. No drama, no speech, just delivery. No one moved, no one spoke. My father looked at me like I'd stabbed him, but he didn't say a word. Nathan just sat down. My mother went inside. Emily followed her. I stayed, finished the hot dog, drank my water. When the sun shifted behind the trees, I stood up, dropped my plate in the trash, and walked out the gate. No goodbyes, no emotion, just quiet, because they had finally noticed me. And it was too late. They started calling that night. Missed calls from Nathan, 4 of them stacked on top of each other. Then a message, "We need to talk." "Don't do this, Leah." As if we hadn't already talked. As if forging my name wasn't loud enough. Then my mother. Voicemail. Shaky voice. "This is a misunderstanding, sweetheart. Let's talk like a family. You didn't need to humiliate your father." Humiliate. Not hurt, not deceive, not steal. Just humiliate. That was the crime they could see. My father didn't call. He had never needed a phone to make himself heard. Silence was his weapon, and now I was holding it. Emily texted the next day. "You didn't warn me." I replied, "You didn't warn me either." She didn't answer after that. Nathan sent one last message. "You ruined everything over some numbers. You were always cold." I stared at the words, cold. They always said that when I didn't cry at the right time, when I didn't let their guilt wash me clean. But I wasn't cold. I was awake. Dana kept me updated. They'd lawyered up quickly. Local firm, mid-tier, trying to settle before it touched the courtroom. "We'll likely get a financial resolution," Dana said. "They know it's real. The question is how public it becomes." I said, "Let it breathe." She nodded. "We can tighten the timeline next week." Meanwhile, my credit was stabilizing. Temporary freeze filed. The account flagged as fraudulent. Notices withdrawn. I'd still carry the scar for a while. There's no erasing a default that deep. But I was no longer sinking. I had proof. Paper and ink and dates that spoke when no one else would. My apartment was still small, still dim. But I didn't mind the quiet. It gave me space to watch. I saw Nathan delete his social media 2 days after the barbecue. My mother took down the Facebook photo album labeled Family Legacy. The whispers had started. Someone at her church had seen the summons documents. Someone else had recognized the court officer. Their world, built on performance, was beginning to crack. The apology came 4 days later, typed, emailed, from my father. It was 3 paragraphs long. No greeting, just, "Mistakes were made. You're right to be upset. We were trying to help your brother. No acknowledgement of theft, no ownership of the lie, just passive verbs and distance. The second paragraph was worse. "This is hurting your mother, maybe you didn't think about that." I did. I just stopped letting it matter more than what she let happen. The third paragraph was one sentence. "If you drop the charges, we can fix this internally." Internally, as if family was a private company, as if betrayal belonged in a boardroom. I didn't reply. Dana drafted a settlement proposal 2 days later. Restitution for the full loan amount, legal fees, credit repair costs, no countersuit if they complied fully and promptly. They signed within the week. Nathan, reluctantly. My father, grim-faced. My mother didn't attend the signing. It was over, technically, but endings aren't always loud. Sometimes they're just subtraction, the absence of voices you once strained to hear. No one called on my birthday this year either. That part stayed the same. But I didn't eat cake on the floor. I didn't scroll through photos of Nathan getting praised for surviving another year. I didn't check my phone. I went out alone. A quiet place. Dinner for one. Signed the check with a pen I brought from home. Watched the ink dry under my real name. The name they borrowed. The name they finally had to return. After the settlement, they tried to pretend things could go back to normal. Not immediately. Not all at once. Just in soft, quiet gestures that looked like peace but smelled like erasure. An invitation to Sunday dinner. A forwarded email from Emily. Church fundraiser, in case you want to come. A voicemail from Mom that didn't mention the lawsuit at all. Just a clipped, "Thinking of you." None of it felt real. It felt like someone patching a boat after it already sank. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry. Because I had nothing left to say. Silence was no longer a punishment. It was clarity. My father never reached out again. He signed the settlement, paid his share, then disappeared. I assume he told himself it was over, that money fixed things, that names on paper were just bureaucracy, not betrayal, but I still remembered his words, how he called it help, how he looked me in the eye and said I was overreacting. Nathan tried one more time, a text, short. "Look, we messed up, but we're family. Can we meet?" I read it 3 times, then deleted it. No response, no reaction, just space, the one thing he couldn't fill. But Emily, she came in person. 2 weeks after the papers were signed, she showed up at my door. No warning, just a knock. She held a coffee. My favorite order, still warm. I opened the door. Didn't speak. She didn't either. She just stood there, holding the cup, eyes full of something she wasn't ready to say. Eventually, I stepped aside. She came in. We didn't talk about Nathan. We didn't talk about the loan. Not directly. She sat on the edge of the couch and said, "I should have asked what was happening. I didn't know, but I should have known." I didn't answer. She took a breath. "They always made you the strong one. Like that meant you didn't need protection." She looked at me then. "I'm sorry for letting that be true." That sentence landed differently. Not because it fixed anything, but because it didn't try to. It didn't defend them, didn't erase what happened, didn't ask for forgiveness. It just stood there, unguarded. I nodded. She stayed for 20 minutes. Left the coffee on the table. Didn't ask to come again. Didn't try to make it more than what it was. That night, I sat with the cup in my hand. Thought about what people mean when they say family. For years, I believed it meant enduring things, making peace, being the bridge, staying quiet. Now, I think it means knowing where the line is and what you'll do when someone crosses it. I never returned to the old house. I never sat at that folding table again. The next barbecue came and went. They didn't invite me, and I didn't notice. By fall, my credit had fully recovered. Dana sent me the paperwork to close the file. She added a handwritten note at the bottom. "Most people wait until it's too late to fight. You didn't. That matters." I folded it up and kept it, not because I needed a reminder, but because I like evidence, even of the good things. I started my own consulting firm 3 months later, small, quiet, funded with the restitution money they'd hoped I would forget. I named it True Line Consulting, not after the signature they forged, after the boundary they finally taught me to draw. On the day the LLC was approved, I signed the final document with my full name. My hand didn't shake. I pressed the pen into the page with quiet satisfaction. Then I sat back, closed the folder. And for the first time in years, I felt something I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't relief. It wasn't victory, it was balance. It had been months since the last fallout. The lawsuit was closed, my credit recovered, the payments cleared. I'd moved on, at least in the visible ways. No more calls, no more letters, no more damage control disguised as invitations. The silence felt earned. Then one afternoon, a letter arrived. Plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a single printed email thread and a name I hadn't seen in months. Tyler Kerr, loan officer, Wells Freight's original point of contact. His name had appeared once in the early paperwork, buried in a line near the application date. At the time, I hadn't thought much of it. A bank employee? A middleman? Someone who didn't ask enough questions. But now there were messages and timestamps. The first was from Nathan. "Need to move this quick. My sister's credit is clean and she's helping us with paperwork. Can we skip the extra review?" Tyler responded. "If she's signing, that's fine. I'll push it through." The second thread came 3 days later. Tyler, "Need a second verification. Is Leah available to confirm by phone?" Nathan, "No, she's traveling. But it's already signed. Just file it." Tyler, "Copy that. I'll mark it verified." Verified, without speaking to me, without hearing my voice, without confirming anything, just a casual disregard. The last message in the envelope wasn't internal. It was from a whistleblower. Anonymous, but direct. "This loan was pushed through without protocol. You should know your name was used, and the person who let it happen still works there." I read it twice, then a third time. It wasn't emotional. It was clinical. I scanned the documents, checked the signature timestamps, cross-referenced them with my own records. The fraud wasn't just familial. It was assisted, looked over, stamped and passed, because Tyler didn't want to delay, because Nathan said the right words, because my name opened the door, and no one stopped him from walking through it. I forwarded everything to Dana. She called the next morning. "You want to go after him?" I didn't answer right away, not because I wasn't sure, because I wanted to be still. I thought about the bank's advertising, the way their branches wrapped themselves in phrases like integrity and community trust. I thought about the way Tyler had typed, "Copy that," like I was just a file. "Yes," I said. Dana didn't ask why. She just got to work. The case wasn't about money. It wasn't even about punishment. It was about the gap in the system, the places where people like me fall straight through because someone wants to hit their monthly target, because a signature is easier than accountability. The bank responded quickly. Internal audit launched. Tyler was placed on administrative leave. PR, silence, then a quiet offer, confidential settlement, non-disclosure clause, minor compensation. Dana sent it to me, I read it, then replied, "Declined." They sent another, more money, tighter language, declined again. On the third offer, they changed tone. "Let's talk options. How would you like to proceed?" I told them. I wanted a formal acknowledgement, written, on letterhead. admitting Tyler Kerr violated policy and improperly cleared a fraudulent loan in my name. I wanted it released to their full client database, not buried, not legalese, just plain language, and I wanted it public. They stalled, then folded. 2 weeks later, a statement appeared on the bank's website, small, tucked under community standards, but it was there. We deeply regret an incident involving improper authorization of a commercial loan under the name of Ms. Leah Wells. Protocols have since been updated. We take full responsibility. My name, not hidden, not softened, in black and white, the way it should have been the first time. I didn't tell anyone, didn't post it, didn't forward the link, because I wasn't interested in applause. I just wanted the record corrected. And now it was. That night, I closed the folder labeled Wells Fraud, archived it, moved it into an encrypted backup, not because I was forgetting, because I was finished.